So, welcome to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio, and today is Friday, February the 14th, and that's 2025. And happy Valentine's Day to everyone. It's seems to be a day when people focus on sending love to others who are close to them and friends, and yet we should be doing that every day. And so, I just got the comment there. I was just checking it out. And Michael will be with us here in just a moment. We had a really good day yesterday. It was Michael's birthday, his eternal day. And we spent the whole day over taking care of Ryan and Aria and Lincoln. And Aria was a little under the weather, so we stayed a little bit longer and we were a little bit later going out last night, but we had a good birthday dinner celebration. And the volume, I trust. I have not figured it out yet. I could hear Dr. Tim on an old phone, but not on my new phone. So we will get it worked out. And we're glad that you joined us. Glad for the ones that hung around and offered a few comments. We would love to hear from you, though. Ask your questions. What can we do? We're here to support you. You can hit the call button. And when you click that, then it usually gives three choices. Are you calling to express that you agree, disagree, or that you just want to say hello? Click one of those and then hit the call button again, and you'll go into queue, and then we'll see your hand up, and we'll be able to turn you on and listen to you. You can also, if you're on the app, you can chat in the chat room and ask your questions there. And it's a whole lot easier than doing a monologue. So if you have a comment or question about anything that's being discussed or anything not being discussed, then please let us know. And Michael was just saying to give an update on Ryan. So the doctor had started him on some steroids and wanted him to take those for a week and then send them another picture. He's got some swelling still at the original site where they took the tumor out. And so they want to make sure that the drain pump is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. And I guess worst case scenario is next week we'll make another trip to Vanderbilt and they'll adjust the amount that the shunt drains from his head into his abdomen. And we're hoping that we get to the other side of this. Right now he's scheduled to still be out of work until mid-March. And so we're, going over there usually about 4 days a week now. Gabby's mom is able to help once or twice, but for the most part, we're going over and taking care of the babies, and all three of them. Ryan is still my baby, even if he is almost 38. And we appreciate your all's prayers and your support. And it's just ongoing challenge, but we are getting there. And, thank you for staying with us. Here is Michael.
Awesome. Welcome and happy Valentine's Day. Delighted that you're here. Delighted that we get to play. And Jane, thanks for being here. I hope you're going to get to stay with us. We're going to talk about the commitment today. Way back in the early days of developing this work, I had a belief that I discovered was mistaken. A belief that there was such a thing as a diseased relationship. And so when I first started to work, I started out in the forgiveness arena. And then when I went into the relationship arena, I very, very quickly discovered that there is no such thing as a diseased relationship. Every relationship is a perfect creation. Every relationship will show us exactly what it is that we need to deal with. And once you recognize that, then the new title of that workshop, and I say new, this goes back now 37, 38 years ago, it went from healing your relationships to healing through relationships. Recognizing that relationships are the place. Somebody can go off in the mountains and go to a cave and hide away and say, oh, I'm meditating, 24 hours a day and I've been here for 40 years. But if I hadn't gotten close to somebody who resonates what I've been hiding from myself all my life, or maybe in all of my generations. Yesterday we had the conversation about, familiarity breeds contempt. What does that mean? Somebody gets close enough, they're going, and if they know how to resonate what I've been hiding from myself, all of a sudden up it comes. And if I play the game of projection, then I think that, of course, they're the problem in my life. And our objective here is to understand that that simply is not the truth. And rock and roll with this idea of healing through relationships. And basically, what I did as I taught that work in the early days of this is I used my own relationship as a laboratory. And I realized that something in my mind needed to change if I wanted to be free of conflict. And so I started to work with the commitment that we've developed. If you've been through laws of living, you might remember that one of the things we talk about is regulatory speech. And that regulatory speech is something that is the literally the frequency of our words that actually control our cellular chemistry, our emotions, our creative process, the energy waves that we send out into the world, as well as the energy waves that are elevated to conscious awareness through what we call our thinking. And so I was talking with someone just the other day, and they were sharing how they had gotten involved in a relationship issue, someone that they had not seen in some time, and they were pining for them. Oh, in the culture's words, I love you. And then within a very short period of time, all of a sudden, that wasn't exactly how they were feeling. And when you recognize that your feelings are a product of what's moving inside of you, they are never a result of what's happening outside of you, then if someone gets close enough to you, familiarity breeds contempt, brings up any kind of hostility or fear in me, then if I'm in the game of denial, dissociation, and projection, I blame everybody else for what's going on in my life. Of course, I'm a member of that religion. If I language and live in the world of blame, but the commitment was something early in this work that I realized was something that I needed to follow. It's a pattern of speech. It's a pattern of thoughts. And if you read the commitment, and you can go to our website, whyagain.org/commitments, and you'll see several different versions. The first person, where I do it in the mirror with myself, and the commitment that we're going to talk about today, being Valentine's Day and holding space for an awesome, happy Valentine's Day. The objective of the commitment is to put into speech, by the use of the commitment, the tools and the inclination toward taking responsibility and healing. And when you do that, then literally the energetic patterns which create the perceptual constructs of your mind that incline you toward behavior change. If your speech never changes, your realities will never change. And everything starts with speech. We hear about, over the years, I've worked with a lot of people who've, let's say, been in relationships where there's cheating going on. And they blame their cheating on, well, we both worked in the same place and we just got close. It's like, no, what you did is you allowed your mind to go into a place where it became acceptable on some level to quote unquote cheat in that relationship. And the cheating may have been nothing more than in your mind. What we're looking to do in this work is to understand how this energy system works and to have 100% integrity within ourselves. And so as you read through this commitment, you'll see the issues that I've been through in developing this work. And if you go back to the early commitment, it's about, I haven't sat down and looked at it, but about half as many words as are in the commitment today. And just last week, there's a couple that I know that had started using the commitment. They were forming a new relationship and they'd started using the commitment with each other. And started to see shifts and ended up opening a conversation, on a personal level with me. And that led to adding still a couple of new thoughts to the commitment. So imagine yourself face to face with the person who perhaps your mind has been building pictures that tell you that they're the problem in your life. And imagine that you are able to live out of reality structures based in what we're going to offer in this commitment. So, first of all, I promise to trust you enough to tell you the truth. Now, most people, and if you've been in an intensive, you'll remember the opening night of the intensive. One of the first things that I talk about is developing a space of trust. That the reason why we have, at any time in our lives, and it started early for most people, dissociated from the truth, dissociated from the content of our own minds, was because it wasn't safe enough to even look at the truth within, let alone speak about it. So now here's a tool. I'm going to trust you enough to tell you the truth. And then I'm going to be true to you. What does that mean? That means I'm going to have integrity in my relationship with you. Absolutely, totally, and completely in integrity. And I'm going to be true to you and always engage in just and fair behavior with you. If you go into the Aramaic Beatitudes, one of those Beatitudes, it doesn't come across in the Greek misinterpretations of the Beatitudes, but in Aramaic, one of those Beatitudes calls for just and fair behavior between people. Now, if you had a power person that did not treat you justly and fairly, then probably the inclination, especially when under stress, to be just and fair with others is not there. The inclination is in some way, shape, or form to take advantage. So here's a tool, and this is something that I speak face to face with the person who perhaps has brought things up in me that I maybe don't want to deal with. And then recognizing my own human life. If my power person was sour, was miserable, was angry, was critical, was abusive, then under stress, what my mind is going to do until I heal that power person dynamic is it's going to play out those behaviors. Remember, 3 levels of stress from the power person dynamic. And the third level is when one becomes ultra stressed, and what the mind will literally force people to do, or at least strongly incline people to do, is to do what the power person did to them that they hated the most. So this commitment is not about you. It's not about the person I'm in relationship. It's about me and how I'm going to restructure my mind to function. So the next idea in the commitment is I commit to always be sweetness in your life. Now, of course, if you come from that, there's a pretty negative, stereotypical male culture that's going on that lives on criticism, lives on abuse, and, you got to be tough. Well, excuse me. If you hold that newborn baby boy, you've got sweetness. You've got the active presence of love. All that other stuff is a cultural construct that comes from hostility, fear, and living as a member of the one world universal religion of blame. Going to have to give that up. So if I'm in sourness in my interaction with you, my physiology is suffering from a disease. Being sweetness in your life isn't about you. It's about me cleaning up my own disease, my own sourness, my own hostility, fear, rage, guilt, grief, what have you. This whole body of work is all about going to the inside. And remember, when you talk about the idea from the Course in Miracles about the world is false perception. It's a construct of your mind. And the only world that the Course in Miracles aims forgiveness at is the one between your ears. There is no proper application of forgiveness to another person. Understood correctly, what people call the forgiveness of another is properly categorized as pardoning. So yes, if you do something off the wall and it brings up rage in me, I may choose to pardon you. And then if I'm in conscious awareness, I'm going to go, wow, what you just said brought some rage up in me. And what I'm committed to is being sweetness in your life. So I'm going to take responsibility for my rage and I'm going to be through it. So Joe made a comment, they know how to resonate. Well, if you look at the world of energy, if I've got two magnets and I try to put the north pole of a magnet into the field of another magnet, now there's nothing between those magnets, or so we say, but obviously there's something there because those magnets push apart from each other. If I turn one of the magnets around so that the north pole is pointed toward the south pole of the other magnet, those magnets are going to be irrevocably drawn together, drawn into each other. Well, resonance means that we literally send out every thought we think, every energy we hold on to, sends out a literal electromagnetic field. And the people who are drawn to us are those who have a match with our electromagnetic field and will tend to dance to the tune that we set up and play out what we most don't want to have happen to us. Let's see if that's true. Is anybody in our audience, and this is of course rhetorical, unless you want to share something in the notes, has anybody ever gone into someone's space totally committed to being loving, nurturing, and caring, and then all of a sudden found yourself functioning like a mad banshee? It's like, what happened? I wanted to be caring, concerned, taking care of this person. And now I just went into this fit of rage. My choice was care and concern. What happened? Well, that's called dancing to somebody else's tune. If what they needed, if what matched their energy was rage. Oh, I had a power person that raged, and now here I am in my fear, and my fear moves. I know rage is coming. I'm literally sending up a literal, measurable, high energy wave that's going to draw someone with the capacity for rage. Now, the beauty of that relationship, and we call that in our Healing Through Relationships workshop, a relationship based in matching bags of garbage. And they're perfect relationships because if I can resonate the rage in you because I have fear of rage and you show up raging, I get to heal my fear because your rage is going to bring it out of the unconscious into the conscious level. And if you live this commitment, you'll get to heal your abuse, the rage that's being pointed back at me. And so again, this commitment comes from a workshop called Healing Through Relationship. And so if what you need is someone to, let's say, rage at you, and I have the matching bag of garbage, there's going to be a resonance. I'm going to be attracted to you. And that's perfect as it is, because that's exactly how we heal. If I keep everybody who could ever show me my fear or my rage or my sadness or my grief or my hatred or my vengeance, if I could keep everybody away that could show that to me, I could pretend my whole life that none of that's there. Now, most people say, well, that sounds pretty good to me. I think I'll go for that life. Well, except for one thing. Those qualities of hate and rage and fear and grief and pain in your cells are what kill you. So, in truth, when you get conscious, you want people who can show you what it is that you need to deal with. And then, if up comes the fear or the rage, whatever it is, this particular line of commitment, I commit to always be sweetness in your life, to nurture you daily, and to treat you lovingly, gently, and with respect in my thoughts, in my words, and in my actions. All three levels of energy. Now, if somebody's into abusive fisticuffs, if someone's into being physically abusive with people, that can be a relatively easy thing to stop. You put your fist down at your side and that's it. But, and we're looking at three levels of energy here. So there's the physical level, or what we call the physical. Then there's the verbal. Now, if I'm using abusive language toward you, I can stop that. I can shut my mouth. But then I have to deal with the next subtle level of energy, and that's the thought level. So here's my commitment. Now, why would I want to treat you lovingly, gently, and with respect after what you just did? Because whatever energies I originate, I get the original in my physiology. And if it's of a disintegrative nature, it's me that I'm damaging first. And if I send that out to you, if there's no resonance in you, then it's just going to come right back to me. And if it does resonate in you, then we're going to tend to have a conflict. And the Healing Through Relationships workshop is about resolving those conflicts. Because I can't have, it's interesting over the years, I've had so many people like, oh yeah, I would just love to have one of those relationships where there's no conflict. Oh, it'd be so nice. Well, guess what the standard is? I guarantee you a conflict-free relationship. I guarantee you one. If you become a conflict-free being. But you are not going to have a conflict-free relationship until you are a conflict-free being. So now, when I treat you lovingly, gently, and with respect, I get to look at the conflicted parts of my own mind that you bring up. And when I do that in my words, in my actions, and my thoughts, when I clean up the thoughts that lead to abusive behavior, then I heal what's in my physiology and things begin to change. Actually, the commitment, Jeannie just put the latest commitment we're working with today. I made 3 or 4 changes just the other day. So they're on the website. You can download them from there, Dawn. So you can pull the commitment up and download them. And happy Valentine's Day to you, Joe Bryson. And Jeannie just put a link in. Hey, cool. So now that's the first set of thoughts from my commitment. Now, I wish I had. And Jeannie, I wonder, I don't know whether we've got one around the house here. I know I've got them in Heartland, but I wonder if we've got a copy of the early commitment, which is about, I don't know, somewhere between a third and half the number of words in today's commitment. Because each time I came across an issue in my relationships, I would add something to the commitment as a tool for working through that. So the next set of thoughts in the commitment is, if in every interaction I commit to affection for you, affection is compassion and love are the natural state of the human being. If that's obliterated in me, I'm the one who's suffering. If I don't have the capacity for that, I've lost something in myself. And I'm going to become aware of it again and make it mine when I put it into my language and I express it toward you. I'm going to look for and acknowledge the highest and best in you as I surrender to love, our true nature. So here I'm going to allow myself to breathe and allow myself to tap into the presence of love. If conflict is up with me, if some sort of hostility or fear is in my face, then I get to work through that energy in me. And thanks for the interaction. More and more as you use this commitment, you will be in appreciation. If you really get that it's time to quit your membership in the one world universal religion of blame, to really forgive every dynamic in your mind that could even conceive of somebody else being to blame for what's happening in your life. Now you say, well, but Michael, look, this person did this terrible thing. You're right, they did. I saw them. I'm with you. 100%. I saw them do it. They did it. What's coming up in you as a result? Oh, I'm still connected to love. Everything is cool. Then there's no work to be done there. But if they do something that's way off the wall, can you hold on to, and that's the objective of this, can you hold on to, can you maintain your human life, which is literally the created state of love? Can you maintain that in your physiology while someone does an atrocity in your purview? If you can, you've taken the next step into being a conscious creator and bringing healing to the world. So in every interaction, I'm gonna purposely, consciously. Now, maybe your power person didn't live out of affection for you. And so that's not a habit for you. if that's true. If your power person was always in criticism or always in condemnation or always in blame, it was no matter what you did, there was always something wrong. Then affection is not something you've had modeled. And in order to reestablish it in yourself as a natural thing to do, to have affection in your physiology and offer it to others no matter what they're doing, it's going to take changing your speech, changing your thinking to do that. And part of that is to breathe and surrender to love. And then the final thought in this commitment, and again, this is autobiographical. I found myself and at times where, yeah, I'm being loving, but then if I listen to my voice tone, it wasn't very nice. It's like, oh, there's a clue. There's something unconscious that's running my speech. And so that's when I put into the commitment, I will use only voice tones. And then the next word actually is a new piece that was just added a few days ago. There's a friend of ours who's a therapist, and we were talking, and uh, she's actually a member of this couple that I was speaking of. And they're doing the commitment every day. And uh, one of the friends had shared with her, and they decided to use the commitment. And she realized that she was using some mm, not so nice language, that she'd come out of a culture that, what's called cursing or swearing was an acceptable thing. And that was just kind of like part of it. And had never really thought of, as she shared this with me, how that impacted her or her relationships. So she actually brought forward, as we were talking about the commitment and some changes that I'd made in it, she came up with this idea of in my relationship, I was using this kind of nasty language, but I just thought, well, it's just words, it's no big deal. And then really looked inside, it's like, no, I'm going to correct this. So she put into the commitment this word of language. So now the commitment, and I chose to adapt that, and I thank you for that input. I will use only voice tones and language that reflect my deep caring for you. Oh, so now if out of my unconscious flows some form of nasty language toward another, here's a clue. Here's a way that I become conscious of that and go, oh, wait a minute. No, this language reflects an hostility in me that I want to free my physiology of. So this may be, you know, if up comes this natural unconscious, I'm going along with somebody and they do something I don't particularly like and I turn around with a, the hell with you kind of thing. Ooh, maybe I better take a breath. Maybe I better look at this. Now that I put it to the commitment that I'm going to use voice tones and language that reflect my deep caring for you, when I don't, that's my clue that I need to heal. That's my clue into looking at my unconscious. And when you start looking at the unconscious, this whole idea, in the ancient teachings, they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain. The veil of the temple is not a purple curtain in the church. The veil of the temple is the wall or the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious. A person can kid themselves into thinking, oh, everything's cool and I'm being cool with this person, and then they turn around and tell them to go to hell. But it's just, kind of, no. If I've put that into my commitment to you, then when my language reflects hostility, I'm going to take responsibility for it and change that. And when you realize this barrier, this veil, this wall that needs to be opened, when you realize that in your genes are literally the words, the thoughts, the realities, the unresolved issues structured from every generation of your bloodline, and until somebody in the bloodline faces them and cleans them up, it remains in the genes. This wall is 20 feet thick and it's 100 feet high. Now, most people are like, oh, I went to that Healing Through Relationships workshop last week. Why isn't everything wonderful in my relationships yet? I actually have a couple, this goes back several years ago, and they had been together for several years. They had 3 children, actually. And a lot of the relationship was based on nastiness. And they decided to divorce. And they literally, the wife in this couple shared with me, she'd been to an intensive recently. And she shared with me that they both had their bags literally packed, sitting at the door, ready to walk out of their house and go their own ways for the rest of their lives. And as they were getting ready to do that, she shared that she said, okay, if this is it, this is it. But I have one request. And what I'd like to do is just sit down with you and watch the Healing Through Relationships video. He agreed to that. The next time we heard from them, it was like they were on their honeymoon again. They stayed together. He actually passed away about 5 years later. They stayed together and in a totally, completely changed relationship. They'd been together for, I think their daughter was about 15, so they'd been together, I don't know, 15 plus years, but were divorcing. And sitting down at that moment of divorce and taking responsibility, and part of the Healing Through Relationship workshop is the commitment. It's the early version of the commitment because that workshop actually goes back, oh, I don't know, 30 plus years ago. But when I realized that the minute that I exchange genes with another person, you know, many people don't realize why the suggestion of those who understand the human energy system is you don't just go sexing around with everybody that you are attracted to, either in your mind or with your body. Because the minute that you have sexual intercourse with someone, you exchange genes with them. They take on your genes and you take on theirs. That's why, until people become intimate with each other, they can seem to have a pretty good time together. But then when they give each other access to the other's unconscious mind, then it's more easily triggered into activity. And that's when the challenge begins. In fact, the moment at which someone reaches in to the deepest parts of their partner's minds that they've been given access to through the interchange of sexual energy, the point where that tends to happen is when the stress is up and the chips are down. And when one triggers in another those energies they don't want to deal with, this is where the commitment comes in. And so the next set of ideas in the commitment, my connection to love, my source, recognizing, if you go to the scriptures where we're told that, some of the disciples said, yes, what's most important in the law? A couple of corrections that are needed in that whole passage. First of all, law is not the rule of a superior as the culture tells us. Kings want you to believe that law is what he tells you to do. That's not law. The legislature has taken the place of the kings, and they write down the things they want you to do, and they want you to believe that's law. That is not law. Those are rules and regulations, yes. And in the culture, if we agree to come together and create rules and regulations with which we govern ourselves, great. But if somebody becomes a king, then you're going to get the game of, I want you to do what I want you to do when I want you to do it, and I'm going to tell you that's law. In Aramaic, when they said to Yeshua, what's most important in the law? That word law meant the way things work. So in essence, they were asking the question, if I want to be a human being, what's most important in the way that works to actually claim my human life? Yeshua did not say, love God, love your neighbor as yourself, as the Greeks would tell us. That's a total, complete misinterpretation of what was said. If you go to the first century Aramaic language, what Yeshua said there is, have Rachma for the Creator. Have Rachma for your neighbor. And by so doing, you maintain your human life. Now, Rachma, I would offer, is a gateway in the frontal lobes of the brain. It's a filter that both filters out data stored in the mind based in hostility or fear, and literally is the gateway through which human life enters into this human form. Just because someone has a human form does not mean they have a human life. A human form is just a form. The human life is what it takes to make it human. And human, again, Go back to the moment where you first held a newborn child and tap into the essence of that newborn. What's the essence of the newborn? Before they were tainted by the world, what does everybody know is human life? It is love. And notice if you go back and you spend time holding that newborn, and we've had the chance recently. Lincoln is now 6 months and very much in his newborn energy. And I just delight, every day that we take care of him, I get at least 2 hours of him just laying on my chest, sound asleep, just hanging out with his energy. Human life is love. There is a filter or a gateway in the frontal lobes of the brain that, when active and open, brings human life into the human form. Now, there is no such idea in the English language. There is no such idea in the Greek and no such idea in the Latin. It's in the Aramaic. So it was never translated into the English, at least nowhere that I know of on the planet was it translated. And of course, if you don't know it's there, if you don't know how your own mind works, how are you going to operate it? Let's imagine it. My son grows up and I teach him to drive. Well, he's got a car, it's got wheels, it's got a muffler, it's got, an engine, it's got all those parts, the last window, steering wheel, brakes. This is great. I put him in the car, I spend a few weeks teaching him, and he rides off in the car. But what if there was no such thing as a car? You see, we'd heard the story about a car, and my son says, Dad, I want to learn how to drive a car. What's he going to have to do? He's going to have to invent rubber and make tires. He's going to have to invent wheel bearings. He's going to have to invent an engine. He's going to have to invent a transmission, glass, steering wheel, brakes, seats. He's going to have to invent all kinds of things. And then he's going to have to learn how to drive the damn thing. That's a lot of work to do that. Think about it. If you don't know how to operate your mind, if you're going to go out, now I'll just say that through good fortune and some cosmic accidents that pushed me in the direction of doing this work full time, better than 50 years ago, I chose to dedicate myself to building this body of work. And I would say that's analogous to building a car. Now, the average person is not going to go and take the 50 years it takes to come to the level of understanding of building this work. One of the reasons we do this show 5 days a week, we've been doing it for 15 years now, is so that everyone has access to the tools in a form that is refined and usable. And of course, like the other day, as I shared, this woman's like, oh, the word language needs to be in there. You're right. Oh, thank you. So it's in interaction. And over the years, I mean, if you read my book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, you'll see that in the acknowledgments, it's not just I acknowledge my mom and my dad and my spouse, and there are over 500 names in those acknowledgments. There literally are the names of people that I interacted with and worked with who helped me to build this body of work. This commitment is built to instruct you on how your mind works and how, if there's some form of hostility or fear, to clean up your mind and step into a new state of being. So the next idea in the commitment is my connection to love, or source, gratitude for my relationship with you, and our serenity will always be more important than any issue. We come to our relationships and we all have our bag of issues. Sadly, what happens is, if I give you the look and up comes an issue for you and you don't have the tool, you don't have a car that you know how to drive that issue out of your mind and body with, then the issue's in your face. And then your issue is probably going to bring up one for me. And, my observation in the early days, especially of doing this work, is so many people in relationships were, it was like they had this whole huge bag of issues that they were holding up in front of their partner, and they could not even see around the bag of issues. It was so big. And that's when they said the honeymoon is over. Recognizing that we all have our issues. This particular idea is to recognize that, yes, an issue came up for me. Is that issue important? Yes. But is it more important than our relationship? Is it more important than my connection to love, my source? Is it more important than gratitude for you and all that we have? Do I trade this issue for this relationship? Is the honeymoon over? Is serenity more? Yes, there's an issue in my face. Is my serenity more important than? No. So that's where this particular idea comes from. My connection to love, our source, and gratitude for our relationship with you and our serenity will always be more important than any issue. I open my being to embrace you in my love. And for me, when I do that, I breathe and I imagine that literally my whole energy field is opening and embracing whoever I'm speaking this commitment to, literally energetically reaching out and embracing. So I open my being to embrace you in my love, and I open my being to be embraced in your love. Terry, I'm not sure what's happening that you can't hear me. Um, Jeannie, are you able to hear me all right? We've, we've been having some issues. Tim was having issues on the show earlier, so I apologize. I'll speak as loud as I can. So as I open my being to embrace you in my love, I open to being embraced in your love. And then, and here's one of the more recent additions to the commitment that I made, because I noticed that some of the earlier things weren't always true for me. I had it in the commitment, I wanted to do it, but I wasn't always capable of it. So recognizing that, I want to do something about it. So that's where this next idea comes from. If anything I have committed to here sounds hollow, like if I said, yeah, I'm going to use voice tones that are loving with you, and I got into this gruff tone, yes, I wanted to do it. Am I capable of it yet? Maybe not. Maybe with what's resonated to me right now, I'm not capable of it. So now I'm going to acknowledge that to myself. So if anything I've committed to sounds hollow, or anything unlike love comes up in me, I'll hold this in my heart. So if there's a skill that I've built into the early part of the commitment that I still can't live up to, then I'm going to do something about it. Here's what I'm going to do about it. Here's a tool. I'm going to open my heart. I'm going to embrace us and hold us in my heart, and I'm going to listen. As I learn to give up any denial. Now, the gentleman that I was speaking about that had recently been in a relationship working commitment, I was sharing with him why I had put it when he read this. It's like this: if anything is committed to sounds hollow, it didn't make sense to him. As we were talking, and I was explaining to him why I had put that in there, he came back with, "Oh, okay. Well, one of the things that I've noticed is that, sometimes I'm in denial. Sometimes I'm hiding things from myself." And so if that happens, I'm going to acknowledge it. Yes, I'm not living up to it. Something unlike love is up in me. So what am I going to do? I'm going to hold this in my heart and listen. I'm going to give up my denial. What does that mean? I'm going to stop all speech about how I'm going to blame you for what's happening inside of me. What does that speech look like? How does the average person language blame? You made me mad. You made me sad. You upset me. That disturbed me. They really peeved me. Every time those words come out of somebody's mouth, their mind is locked in an absolute total perceptual lie. So if something's hollow in me, if something unlike love comes up, I'm going to expand that space of love. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to give up all the conversations that I have in my head about how this is your fault, so that I can learn to speak, experience, and be responsible and forgive my own realities. So now we've got a mechanism, we've got a tool for dealing with this 100-foot high, 20-foot wide brick wall called the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious, the veil of the temple, the thing that I've built against looking at the truth. I've got a tool for that. I'm here for and with you. Now, in many cases, in many situations, if your power person left, if your power person was someone who regularly left, then under stress, what your mind will counsel you to do is to leave. One of the ways you can tell, we tend to have more than one power person in our lives, and that's something we get into in the codependence to interdependence intensive. And if you're ready to do that on a whole new level, we have a self-study codependence to interdependence Zoom video series. It includes 90 hours of video and goes through why is this happening to me again, healing through relationships, communication, did you hear what I think I said, mind shifters, still point breathing. All of that's included in that self-study. So if you want to take it to the next level, there's a way to do it. But if your power person left and left and left, then under stress, and you hated it, under stress, you're going to tend to want to do the same thing. So recognizing that in the commitment is, I'm here. Like leaving is off the table. When I committed to you, I committed. That's it. Leaving is not an option. So whatever comes up, I'm going to take responsibility for in me. I promise to speak only truth to you and keep communication open and keep love conscious, active, and present as we heal, celebrate life, and grow together. And so that's the latest form of my commitment. It's gone through about 4 changes, and it's been probably 2 years or more since I changed it last. But some new things percolated up for me, and then the conversation with these 2 folks added new insight. And so if you want to get a new copy of the commitment, Jeannie has got it in the notes. And if you go to our website, whyagain.org/commitment, then you'll find several different copies of the commitment. And so I hope that fits and makes sense for everybody. And if you're out there in listener land, certainly that's got to have aroused some questions or thoughts for you. So I'm going to open the floor. If you're out there listening, in order to speak to us, you'll see a green bar that goes across your listening app. And there's a little picture of a handset of a phone. If you click that, that will open a little window. And if you go down, there are 3 different options there. Pick the center option. And then down below that, once again, there's a call bar. If you push that, then that will raise a hand in the control panel. I'll be able to see you, and we'll be able to have a conversation. So if you're out there in this land, does that arouse any thoughts for you? Oh, yes. Jeannie's reminding me to announce that Quantum Still Point. We're doing Quantum Still Point starting on March the 2nd through the 9th. And we still have room for a couple people. We've rented a house here in Bristol, Virginia, or actually on the Tennessee side. And so if anybody's ready to do either the 3-day or the 5-day personal one-on-one intensive, we're going to be doing that. I'm going to be doing some training with Patrick McGann, a fellow naturopath I'm training him so he can do it to me. I did a session on myself, but it's the kind of work you can't really totally effectively do on yourself. Though I did do a show where I had done a quantum still point on myself. But if you're ready to do that, you could, if you've got my number, you can drop me a text or a phone call, or if you drop Jeannie an email, JEANIE at WHYagain.org, then she'll key us in. We'll give your phone number and your name. I'll call you, and we'll see if it's appropriate for you to be joining us for Quantum Still Point. The main thing, I actually just wrote to someone this morning, a therapist who had done a Quantum Still Point recently, and he had texted me sharing me they've been sharing the tools with somebody in his therapy work, and that he sent back copies of the text that he had sent them, and that they had replied with that their lives were really shifting then the quantum still point breaks that addiction to going back to that. It doesn't mean that everything's cleaned out of carbon-based memory, but what I've found is that when people use the tool, for instance, this one gentleman had written to me, that the therapist that I was just talking about. Let me see, I'm just looking for a text that he sent me. Here's what he said. I had asked him and he sent back and said, cool, it's weird. And this person I'd been working with for over a year, and issue layer and layer and layer would come up and there'd be a lot of trauma. But after he did his one quantum still point, I mean, I probably breathed him 15, 18 times. And the still point processes through things, but it was still in the space. But his response was, cool, it's weird. It seems like now, even though issues come up, when I deal with them, I automatically go into a meditative and connected state. So rather than being addictedly linked into what's in the carbon-based memory from the past, it seems to break that addiction loose. So that's the main thing that I'm seeing in the quantum still point. And you're not hearing me, Dawn? Okay. So again, we've got about 10 minutes. If you're out there in listener land and you have a question or a thought, let's talk about it. Push that call button. Maybe, Jeannie, do you have any thoughts you want to share on the commitment, how it's impacted your world? You're not on, Jeannie. So the other thing Jeannie's reminded me to do is that we did just this morning confirm that we are going to do a 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again residential intensive. We were going to do teacher training and the personal code evaluation training, but we just didn't have enough people that wanted to come and do a residential. But it looks like we're going to do a 9-day, and it's going to start on the 16th of May. It's going to be here in Virginia. So the 16th through the 24th of May, we'll be doing a 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again intensive. And that'll start on, we'll do Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Healing through relationships, communication. Did you hear what I think I said? Purpose, personal power, and commitment. Mind shifters, hands-on energy. We'll through the whole hands-on energy field training and still point breathing. So, and we will be doing, if you decide you want to do the quantum still point, we will be doing the hands-on energy field work training for those who do the quantum still point, so they can continue to do the energy field work on themselves after the quantum still point, and or give others, instruct others on how to do it so they can support them. Thank you for the heart, Natalie. Accepted. So we've got about 8 minutes. Ginny, why don't you come and share some of your experiences with the commitment, how it's impacted you? One of the thoughts I have is maybe sharing the story that you shared before about your power person dynamic, where you really thought it was one person, and then when you realized that behavior points to the power person dynamic, you were able to see that it was someone else. Maybe you'd share that. You're on, sweetie. Welcome. Can't hear you. I'm not hearing you, Jeannie. Strange. Okay, let's try again.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Awesome.
Okay. So what you're referring to is I always thought that my mother was my power person because she was the one that was always, like the disciplinarian and was controlling and all of that. But what I realized is that when my back's against the wall and I feel like, I need to come out fighting or whatever. What I want to do though is leave. And so when I got to looking at it, it was actually my father. Um, he always had a good quote unquote excuse that he had to go to the farm, and he would be gone 4 or 5 days a week and leave me here, leave my brothers here. And what I realized was that was his way of avoiding conflict, was to leave. And so even though my dad was the gentlest person that you would ever meet,
It's pretty
his
amazing.
yeah, his way of handling a difficult situation was to go to the farm. And so he left. And so I realized that was actually my power person. That's what I learned. What you do to survive was you leave. And of course, then when we were doing the commitment and we got to the part about taking leaving off the table, then I flipped to my next one. And that is, when my back's against the wall, if I can't leave, I'm going to fight. And so it's, all of it in my mind was survival. But, to the other person that's on the receiving end, they feel like they're being attacked. And so, it's different. So you could look at your power person, first look at what do you do when your stress is totally up? And then who did that behavior? And it's not necessarily somebody that appeared to be mean. Like I said, dad was the gentlest, sweetest soul that you would meet, but his behavior of leaving is what I took on, that's what you did to survive. So your power person's not necessarily one that, you might think is aggressive or hateful or whatever. So that was a big point of looking at my own life and saying, what's
And
going on.
yeah, and we tend to have more than one power person in our lives. That's kind of natural. And the way that you tell who your key power person is in any given arena, like you might have one person that's a power person in the arena of money, another in relationships, another in, you know, self-care. You can have different dynamics going on. And of course, with what Jeannie just shared, when the idea of, I'm here for you and with you came into the commitment. So, Miss Jeannie, what I'd like to do is I'd like to make a commitment to you, and that is Happy Valentine's Day. And I promise to trust you enough to tell you the truth, to be true to you, to always engage in just behavior and fair behavior with you. I commit to always being sweetness in your life, to nurture you daily and treat you lovingly, gently, and with respect in my thoughts, in my words, and in my actions, whether I'm in your presence or not. In every interaction, I commit to affection for you, to look for and acknowledge the highest and best in you. And as I surrender to love, our true nature, I will use voice tones and language that reflects my deep caring for you. My connection to love, our source, gratitude for my relationship with you, and our serenity will always be more important than any issue. I open my being to embrace you in my love. I open my being to be embraced in your love. If anything I've committed to here sounds hollow, or anything unlike love comes up in me, I will hold this in my heart and listen as I learn to give up denial and learn to speak, experience, and be responsible for and forgive my own realities. I am here for you and with you. I promise to speak only truth to you as I keep communication open and keep love conscious, active, and present as we heal, celebrate life, and grow together. And I appreciate and cherish you in my life. Thank
I accept, and I don't have time to repeat it to you, so I'll just say ditto back.
you. All right. Well, absolutely received and appreciated. And everybody that's out there in listener land, we make the same commitment to you. We promise to trust you enough to tell you the truth and be true to you. To always engage in just and fair behavior with you. Commit to always be sweetness in your life, to nurture you daily and treat you lovingly, gently, and with respect in our thoughts, our words, and our actions, whether in your presence or not. In every interaction, I commit to affection for you, to look for and acknowledge the highest and best in you as I surrender to love, our true nature. I will use only voice tones and language that reflect my deep caring for you. My connection to love, our source, gratitude for my relationship with you, and our serenity will always be more important than any issue. I open my being to embrace you in my love. I open my being to be embraced in your love. And if anything I've committed to here sounds hollow or anything unlike love comes up in me, I will hold this in my heart and listen as I learn to speak, experience, and be responsible and forgive my own realities. I commit to listening. I'm here for and with you. I promise to speak only truth to you as I keep communication open and keep love conscious, active, and present as we heal, celebrate life, and grow together. And thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful, happy, holy day and the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Take care. Blessings. Bye-bye.